Who was Ronald Reagan? The 40th President of the United States, the Governor of California, the great communicator, a husband, a father, an American. Ronald Wilson Reagan was born on February 6, 1911, in Tampico, Illinois. His childhood was like those of all the children in America at the time. His parents worked hard to get the family through the Great Depression, and he learned that hard work was important very early on. His family taught him the important values of equality, character, family, and freedom. This foundation showed in his personality and love for America. However, Ronald Reagan was different. He would grow up to be one of the most influential leaders in American history. His childhood may have been like everyone else's, but every experience in his life was leading up to his future. As a young adult, the Great Depression was still raging. Jobs were being lost every day. Money just wasn't available to a majority of the population. Reagan's family was poor, but somehow he convinced the headmaster of Eureka College to admit him into the school. He joined the drama club, where he learned how to present himself in front of an audience. He also joined the football team. He was a good player and also was very competitive. Because the Great Depression was still affecting America, the college president announced plans to cut certain classes, lay off professors, and take other steps towards saving money. Ronald Reagan's classmates chose him to deliver a speech protesting the cuts and calling for a student strike, though he was only a freshman. He said, "Giving that speech, my first, was as exciting as any I ever gave. For the first time in my life, I felt my words reach out and grab an audience, and it was exhilarating." He was starting to develop a real talent for speaking to people. After college, he became a radio sports announcer. Listening to one of his broadcasts was like attending a game itself. Soon, he was broadcasting games for the Chicago Cubs. One day, on a trip to Chicago with the team, Reagan ran into a couple of movie scouts. They gave him a screen test and decided he would be a good actor. Over the next 2 decades, he starred in 50 films and became the leader of the Screen Actors Guild. Also in Hollywood, he met the love of his life, Nancy Davis. They starred in a movie together, and it was love at first sight. They were married, and they would continue to be married for the next 53 years. Once his acting career was complete, he began work as a spokesman for the General Electric theaters. But his political career only began once he started making political speeches for the candidate Barry Goldwater. His most famous speech was A Time for Choosing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you and good evening. The sponsor has been identified, but unlike most television programs, the performer hasn't been provided with a script. As a matter of fact, I have been permitted to choose my own words and discuss my own ideas regarding the choice that we face in the next few weeks. I have spent most of my life as a Democrat. I recently have seen fit to follow another course. I believe that the issues confronting us cross party lines. Now, one side in this campaign has been telling us that the issues of this election are the maintenance of peace and prosperity. The line has been used, "We've never had it so good." But I have an uncomfortable feeling that this prosperity isn't something on which we can base our hopes for the future. No nation in history has ever survived a tax burden that reached 1/3 of its national income. Today, 37 cents out of every dollar earned in this country is the tax collector's share. And yet our government continues to spend $17 million a day more than the government takes in. For the peace that we would preserve, I wonder who among us would like to approach the wife or mother whose husband or son has died in South Vietnam and ask them if they think this is a peace that should be maintained indefinitely. Do they mean peace, or do they mean we just want to be left in peace? There can be no real peace while one American is dying someplace in the world for the rest of us. We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.
Although Barry Goldwater was beaten by Lyndon B. Johnson in the presidential election, Ronald Reagan was permanently in the political public spotlight. Many members of the Republican Party begged Reagan to face off against Pat Brown for governor of California. Ronald Reagan won by a landslide and was elected in 1967. He was re-elected for a second term in 1971, but he declined to run for a third term. During his time as governor, he lowered taxes, returned money to the people, and limited the size of the government. After his time in California, Reagan realized that the only way to save America was to become president. He saw the dangers of communism, a weak government, and inflation, and he made it his goal to stop them.
With a deep awareness of the responsibility conferred by your trust, I accept your nomination for the presidency of the United States.
In 1984, Ronald Reagan won the nomination for the Republican campaign. He was to run against incumbent Jimmy Carter. He won extraordinarily with 90.9% of the Electoral College and over 50% of the popular vote. Him and his vice president, George Bush, were going to change America. On January 20th, 1981, he was sworn into office. The nation was euphoric. Then, tragedy struck. 69 days later, a lone gunman attempted an assassination. Although a bullet lodged itself just inches away from Reagan's heart, he made a miraculous and graceful recovery and showed that America was strong. During his first term, he introduced Reaganomics, tax cuts to spur economic growth. He also introduced policies to keep the government off the backs of the people. He started to build up troops and made history by appointing Sandra Day O'Connor as the first woman in the U.S. Supreme Court. After his first term, the nation was recovering, but Reagan felt his work was not done. In the 1984 election, he faced off with Walter Mondale. An issue of the campaign was that some people feared he was too old. He said,
Mr. President, I want to raise an issue that I think has been lurking out there for 2 or 3 weeks and cast it specifically in national security terms. You already are the oldest president in history, and some of your staff say you were tired after your most recent encounter with Mr. Mondale. I recall yet that President Kennedy had to go for days on end with very little sleep during the Cuba Missile Crisis. Is there any doubt in your mind that you would be able to function in such circumstances?
Not at all, Mr. Truitt, and I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
Reagan beat Mondale with 97% of the Electoral College. He was soon inaugurated again. The focus of the second term was foreign affairs. He formed relationships with Margaret Thatcher and the Pope. But a big problem was still communism. He had to deal with evil people like Muammar Gaddafi. But he formed a surprising alliance with Mikhail Gorbachev, the leader of the Soviet Union. He had recently acquired power. Both men realized that the war with each other was pointless and signed an agreement to eliminate short-range missiles. Reagan left the office in 1989. He said,
And that's about all I have to say tonight, except for one thing. The past few days, when I've been at that window upstairs, I've thought a bit of the shining city upon a hill. The phrase comes from John Winthrop, who wrote it to describe the America he imagined. What he imagined was important because he was an early pilgrim, an early freedom man. He journeyed here on what today we call a little wooden boat. And like the other pilgrims, he was looking for a home that would be free. I've spoken of the shining city all my political life, but I don't know if I ever quite communicated what I saw when I said it. But in my mind, it was a tall, proud city built on rocks stronger than oceans, windswept, God-blessed, and teeming with people of all kinds living in harmony and peace. A city with pretty ports that hummed with commerce and creativity. And if there had to be city walls, the walls had doors, and the doors were open to anyone with the will and the heart to get here. That's how I saw it and see it still. And how stands the city on this winter night? More prosperous, more secure, and happier than it was 8 years ago. But more than that, after 200 years, 2 centuries, she still stands strong and true on the granite ridge, and her glow is held steady, no matter what storm. And she's still a beacon, still a magnet for all who must have freedom, for all the pilgrims from all the lost places who are hurtling through the darkness toward home. We've done our part, and as I walk off into the city streets, a final word to the men and women of the Reagan Revolution, the men and women across America who for 8 years did the work that brought America back. My friends, we did it. We weren't just marking time. We made a difference. We made the city stronger. We made the city freer. And we left it in good hands. All in all, not bad. Not bad at all. And so, goodbye. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.
He then moved back to California with Nancy. Reagan believed in a smaller government, freedom for the people, and the United States of America. His biggest legacy was world peace. He stopped the nuclear war with Russia from ever happening and put an end to communism. He also created the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. In 1994, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and he died in 2004. He now rests in Simi Valley, California. We will never forget Ronald Reagan. We will never forget his life or what he did for this country. Thank you.